In the grand theater of history, few relationships are as complex, as deeply intertwined with prophecy, and as fraught with modern-day tension as that between the peoples of Iran and Israel. These are not new nations born of 20th century treaties. They are the inheritors of ancient civilizations, Persia and Judah, whose stories have run parallel and often intersected for millennia. Today, we see their descendants locked in a Cold War that perpetually threatens to turn hot, a conflict that dominates headlines and shapes global politics. The rhetoric is sharp, the threats are existential, and the world watches, holding its breath. But what if I told you that this current state of bitter enmity is not the historical norm, but a dramatic and relatively recent deviation from a long and often supportive past? And what if the future of this conflict, the very fate of the Iranian regime and its people, was written down not in the strategy rooms of the Pentagon or the Knesset, but in the ancient scrolls of prophets who lived over 2,500 years ago? We are about to embark on a journey that peels back to reveal a surprising history of friendship, to pinpoint the exact moment everything changed, and to place the current geopolitical chessboard against the unnerving and startlingly precise blueprint of biblical prophecy. Is the future of Iran a matter of political science, or is it a destiny long foretold? Before we unravel this millennia-old enigma and explore what ancient texts say about the coming days, do us a huge favor and hit that like button to help this story reach more people. And if you're passionate about uncovering the hidden connections between history, prophecy, and current events, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. To truly understand the abyss that now separates Iran and Israel, we must first build a bridge back in time, to an era when their relationship was not one of animosity, but of liberation and mutual respect. Our story does not begin with threats of nuclear annihilation, but with an act of deliverance that is central to Jewish history. In the 6th century BC, the kingdom of Judah was no more. Its temple, the heart of its faith, was a pile of rubble, and its people were captives, exiled to the foreign and intimidating empire of Babylon. For decades they lived in a state of collective mourning, dreaming of Zion and wondering if their God had forgotten them. Their psalms from this period are filled with sorrow, the laments of a people uprooted and enslaved. Into this darkness stepped a figure who would be revered in Jewish scripture not as a conqueror, but as a messianic figure, an anointed one. His name was Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. In 539 BC, Cyrus conquered Babylon, and in a move that was unprecedented for its time, he did not simply replace one tyranny with another. He issued a decree, immortalized on the famous Cyrus Cylinder and recorded in the Bible in the book of Ezra, that allowed the captive peoples, including the Jews, to return to their homelands and rebuild their temples. This wasn't just a political gesture. It was a revolutionary act of religious and cultural tolerance. The Persian Empire, under Cyrus, funded the Jewish return, offering resources and protection for the long journey home and for the monumental task of rebuilding the Second Temple in Jerusalem. For the Jewish people, this was nothing short of a miracle. Cyrus is the only non-Jew in the Bible to be explicitly called Messiah, or Anointed One by God, a testament to the profound significance of his actions. This act forged a bond of goodwill between the Persian and Jewish peoples that would endure for centuries. The Persian Empire became a safe haven for Jews, a place where they could thrive and practice their faith freely. This positive relationship finds its most dramatic expression a few decades later in the story of Esther. The Book of Esther, read aloud by Jews every year during the festival of Purim, is set in the heart of the Persian capital of Susa. It tells the tale of a Jewish queen, Esther, married to the Persian king Ahasuerus, often identified as Xerxes I, when a wicked court official, Haman, plots a genocide against all the Jews in the empire, It is Esther's courage and the support of her cousin Mordecai that saves her people. The king, upon learning of the plot, sides with his queen and the Jewish people, ordering the execution of Haman and allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. This story is not about an outside conflict. It's an internal story of the Persian court, where the Jewish people are integrated at the highest levels and are ultimately protected by the Persian monarchy. For over a millennium, through various dynasties, this general pattern of tolerance and coexistence continued. Even after the advent of Islam, Persia remained a place where Jewish communities, while facing the typical challenges of a minority group, continued to exist and contribute to the cultural and scientific fabric of the nation. This long history is crucial because it shatters the modern narrative that Iran and Israel are eternal, destined enemies. Their animosity is not ancient. It is a product of very specific, modern events. The seismic shift, the moment the earth opened up and swallowed centuries of goodwill, can be pinpointed to a single year, 1979. Before the Islamic Revolution, under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran and Israel enjoyed a surprisingly close, if pragmatic, relationship. The Shah's Iran was a pro-Western monarchy, a key pillar of American strategy in the Middle East, and it saw a natural ally in a non-Arab, technologically advanced shared Israel. Intelligence, collaborated on military projects, and had robust economic ties. Israeli architects and engineers helped build modern Iran, and Iranian oil flowed freely to Israel. They were united by a shared suspicion of the more aggressive Arab nationalist states, like Nasser's Egypt. For the large and ancient Jewish community still living in Iran, it was a period of relative security and prosperity. But beneath the surface of this modernizing, Western-aligned state, a storm of religious and political discontent was brewing. The Shah's regime was seen by many as a corrupt, oppressive puppet of the United States. And the figurehead for this simmering rage was a cleric in exile, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. When Khomeini returned to Iran in 1979 and swept to power, he didn't just overthrow a monarch, he sought to overturn the entire world order as he saw it. Central to his revolutionary ideology was a fervent opposition to what he termed the Great Satan, the United States, and its primary regional ally, the Little Satan, Israel. The transformation was immediate and absolute. Diplomatic ties were severed overnight. The Israeli embassy in Tehran was handed over to the newly formed Palestine Liberation Organization. The very existence of Israel, in the eyes of the new Islamic Republic, was an illegitimate colonial cancer in the heart of the Muslim world, a Zionist entity that had to be wiped off the map. This wasn't mere political posturing. It became a foundational tenet of the regime's identity and foreign policy. The centuries of peaceful coexistence were erased from the official narrative, replaced by a doctrine of implacable, religiously mandated hostility. The revolution didn't just change Iran's government. It fundamentally rewired its national identity and its relationship with the Jewish state, setting them on the collision course we witness today. The question then becomes, was this dramatic reversal, this transformation of a friend into a mortal foe, foreseen in the ancient prophetic texts that both Jewish and Christian traditions hold sacred? The answers found there are both chilling and remarkably specific. When we turn the pages of the Hebrew Bible to the words of the prophets, we are not looking for vague, ambiguous predictions that can be molded to fit any event. We are looking for specific geographical names, sequences of events, and ultimate outcomes. And when it comes to the land and people of modern-day Iran, the Bible is far from silent. It speaks of Persia, and it also speaks of a region named Elam. This is where we uncover our first major point. Number 1. The judgment and restoration of Elam. In the 49th chapter of the book of Jeremiah, written about a century before Cyrus the Great, the prophet delivers a series of oracles or divine messages against various nations, Tucked among them is a startlingly detailed prophecy concerning Elam. Ancient Elam was a civilization located in what is now the far west and southwest of modern Iran, including the province of Khuzestan, a region that today is critically important for its oil reserves. Jeremiah 49, verses 35 to 39, lays out a four-stage prophecy. First, God declares, "Behold, I will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might." The bow was the symbol of Elamite military power. They were renowned archers. The prophecy foretells a great dispersion. Speaks of a shattering of their military and national strength. The four winds from the four quarters of heaven, and I will scatter them to all those winds, and there will be no nation to which the outcasts of Elam will not go. This describes a catastrophic event leading to a global diaspora of the Elamite people, a refugee crisis on a massive scale. Third, and this is the most severe part, the prophecy speaks of a judgment on the leadership of the nation. "I will bring disaster upon them, my fierce anger, declares the Lord. I will send the sword after them until I have consumed them. And I will set my throne in Elam and destroy their king and officials, declares the Lord." This is a stunning statement. The setting of God's throne in a land signifies a total takeover, a divine judgment and removal of the ruling authority. It speaks of a regime change of the most absolute kind, executed not by human hands alone, but by divine will. This isn't just a lost battle, it's the complete dismantling of a power structure. And finally, after these terrifying words of judgment, the prophecy ends on a note of hope that is easy to miss. "But in the latter days I will restore the fortunes of Elam, declares the Lord." This points to a future redemption. After the breaking, the scattering, and the destruction of the old regime, there will be a restoration for the people themselves. Many scholars today look at the turmoil within Iran, the widespread discontent with the clerical regime, the brutal crackdowns on protests, the millions who have fled the country since 1979, and they see the words of Jeremiah echoing through the centuries. The breaking of the bow, the scattering of the people, and the intense global pressure on a tyrannical regime all seem to align with this ancient oracle, leading to the question of what it means for God to set his throne in that nation and ultimately restore its people. Our second major point moves from a specific region to the nation as a whole, placing it within a much larger end-times conflict. Number 2. Persia's role in the Gog-Magog alliance. Perhaps the most famous and debated end-times prophecy in the Hebrew Bible is the War of Gog and Magog, detailed in chapters 38 and 39 of the book of Ezekiel. The prophet describes a future invasion of Israel in the latter days by a great coalition of nations. This alliance is led by a mysterious figure named Gog from the land of Magog, who is the chief prince of Meshech. What is most striking for our discussion is the list of nations that joined Gog in this massive assault on Israel. Ezekiel 38, verse 5, explicitly names the first of these allies. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them. Cush and Put are generally identified as nations in Africa, likely modern-day Sudan, Ethiopia, and Libya. But the first name on the list is unambiguous: Persia. This is the ancient name for the land we now call Ezekiel, Iran. Prophesying during the Babylonian exile before Persia was even a superpower, identifies the future Persian nation as a key player in a final great conflict against a restored Israel. The prophecy describes this coalition coming down from the north like a storm, covering the land like a cloud, with the intent of plundering and destroying the nation of Israel, which at that time is described as living in unwalled villages, a state of relative peace and security. The text goes on to describe a dramatic, supernatural intervention by God to defend Israel, leading to the utter destruction of the invading armies. For biblical scholars and prophecy watchers, the current geopolitical alignment is eerily resonant. Today, Iran, Persia, has formed a close military and strategic alliance with Turkey, often linked to Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, and Russia, another potential identity for Rosh or Magog for some scholars, and it actively funds and directs proxy forces that surround Israel. This ancient prophecy describes a specific alliance of nations, with Persia as a named member, uniting to attack Israel. The headlines of today, detailing Iranian-backed militias in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza, and strategic pacts with nations to the north, seem to be creating the very coalition Ezekiel described over 2.5 millennia ago. This moves the discussion from Iran's internal future to its role in a prophesied global conflict centered on the nation of Israel. With this prophetic framework in mind, the actions and strategies of the modern Iranian regime take on a new and more ominous light. We can now analyze their current military and political posture through this ancient lens. Number 3. The pursuit of the ultimate weapon. The Iranian regime's relentless pursuit of nuclear capability has been the defining international crisis of the 21st century. While the government in Tehran insists its program is for peaceful energy purposes, the international community, and particularly Israel, views it as an existential threat. A nuclear-armed Iran would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the Middle East and give a regime that has repeatedly called for Israel's destruction the means to achieve it. This quest for the ultimate bow, a weapon of immense power, is seen by many as the modern equivalent of the mainstay of their might that Jeremiah spoke of. The regime's identity and claim to regional dominance are deeply tied to its military and technological prowess. The shattering of this bow, as prophesied, could be interpreted in various ways: a military strike that disables the nuclear program, an internal collapse that makes it irrelevant, or a divine intervention that renders it useless. The constant tension, the covert operations, the assassinations of scientists, and the threat of a major regional war all revolve around this single issue. It is the focal point of the modern confrontation, a high-stakes gamble that aligns with the prophetic theme of a proud military power being brought to a breaking point. This leads directly to the regime's primary method of confronting Israel, a strategy that is as insidious as it is effective, and one that also seems to mirror prophetic warnings. Number 4. The strategy of the proxy ring. Rather than engaging in a direct conventional war with Israel, which would be incredibly costly, Iran has perfected the art of proxy warfare. It has funded, trained, and armed a network of militant groups that surround Israel, creating what many analysts call a ring of fire. To the north in Lebanon is Hezbollah, Iran's most successful proxy, boasting an arsenal of over 150,000 rockets and missiles pointed at Israeli cities. Iran has established a significant military presence, using the chaos of the civil war to build bases and supply lines to threaten Israel's Golan Heights. In the Gaza Strip, Iran provides support to groups like Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And further afield, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, armed with Iranian missiles and drones, have demonstrated the capability to strike targets deep within Israel. This strategy serves a dual purpose. It allows Iran to wage a war of attrition against Israel without risking direct retaliation on its own soil, and it fulfills the regime's ideological commitment to resisting the Zionist entity. From a prophetic standpoint, this strategy is chilling. Ezekiel's prophecy does not describe a single army from one direction. It speaks of a coalition, an alliance coming together against Israel. Iran's proxy network is, in effect, a pre-assembled invasion force, a multinational coalition under a unified command structure positioned on Israel's very borders, waiting for the command to attack. It is the physical manifestation of the alliance described by the ancient prophet, a storm gathering on the horizon. So, we are left with two competing visions of Iran's future, one derived from geopolitical analysis and the other from this ancient prophetic blueprint. Which one is more accurate? This is the final and most crucial piece of our puzzle. Number 5. A convergence of futures. The secular geopolitical analysis of Iran's future presents several possibilities. One scenario is regime collapse from within. The Iranian people, particularly the youth and women, have shown incredible courage in protesting against the oppressive clerical rule. Economic hardship, lack of freedom, and international isolation could eventually lead to a popular uprising that succeeds in overthrowing the Ayatollahs. A second scenario is a massive regional war, a preemptive Israeli or American strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, or a major escalation by one of Iran's proxies like Hezbollah, could ignite a conflict that draws in powers from across the globe. A third possibility is a tense continuation of the status quo, a nuclear-capable Iran contained by deterrence, locked in a permanent Cold War-style standoff with Israel and the West. Now, let us overlay the prophetic future. The prophecies of Jeremiah and Ezekiel do not contradict these possibilities. In fact, they seem to encompass them. The prophecy of Elam speaks of a judgment on the ruling class, the king and officials, which aligns perfectly with the scenario with the ongoing refugee crisis. The prophecy of Gog and Magog, which includes Persia, points directly to the scenario of a massive regional war, an invasion of Israel. The prophetic blueprint appears to be a narrative arc that contains the very outcomes that modern analysts foresee. But the biblical forecast adds two crucial dimensions that secular analysis misses. The first is the element of direct divine intervention. Ezekiel's prophecy is clear that the invading coalition is not defeated by the Israeli army alone, but by a series of events: earthquakes, pestilence, hailstones, and fire from heaven, that God unleashes to defend Israel and make his name known among the nations. The second, and perhaps most stunning dimension, is the promise of redemption that follows the judgment. Jeremiah's prophecy concludes with the promise to restore the fortunes of Elam. This is not about restoring the aggressive regime, it is about restoring the people. Incredibly, one of the most underreported stories in the world today is the explosive growth of an underground Christian church inside Iran. Despite intense persecution, more Iranians have converted to Christianity in the 40-plus years since the Islamic Revolution than in the previous 300 years combined. Many of these believers interpret the prophecies of Jeremiah as their own story. A people whose nation has been broken and whose people have been scattered, ruled by a hostile regime that is destined for judgment, but with a promise from God for a future restoration and spiritual revival. Therefore, the future of Iran is not a simple choice between one vision and another. It appears to be a convergence. The political and military tensions we see on the news are the physical manifestations, the moving pieces on a chessboard that was sketched out thousands of years ago. The conflict between Iran and Israel is not just another geopolitical struggle. It is a story that began with an act of grace in the court of Cyrus the Great, took a dark turn with the revolution of 1979, and now seems to be heading towards a climax that was described in breathtaking detail by ancient prophets. The hatred is not eternal, but the current path of the Iranian regime places it in direct opposition to the nation of Israel, and, according to the biblical text, in direct opposition to the God of Israel. The ultimate outcome, as foretold, involves a great shaking and a terrible conflict, but it does not end there. It ends with the fall of an oppressive power and the promised restoration of a great and ancient people, the very people of Elam, the people of Iran. The world watches the headlines, but perhaps the real script was written long ago.